Welcome to my kitchen. I'm so glad you joined me, and I'm really excited because today I have a very special guest with me. I have my girlfriend Sally. Sally, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you, Hazel.
Isn't the kitchen the greatest place to gather and talk?
Wonderful.
Now, Sally, you like me, you're a registered nurse.
Yes, yes.
And what kind of patients do you take care of?
I take care of heart patients, specifically ones that have been in the hospital, who have had a problem with their heart, and now they're going home, and I need to help them not come back. So I'm the stay out of the hospital nurse.
I like that. Now, besides being a nurse and working in the hospital with our cardiac patients, and you teach them a lot of things, right? You got to do something else that's really special.
Oh, really fun. I was appointed by the governor to be on the task force to reduce the risk of heart and stroke in the Inland Empire as part of a major task force for the entire state, but my emphasis is on the Inland Empire. So I go out and everywhere to different businesses, churches, and that's why I'm here tonight to teach the general public about how to prevent stroke and heart disease.
Oh, that's great. So tonight you get to share with all of my audience, and I'm so glad you're here with me in the kitchen and can join in on this conversation. Now, our show tonight wasn't called Heart Throb or Heartbeat. It's called Sugar Blues. So why did you name the show Sugar Blues?
Well, patients who've had a problem with their heart are very confused about sugar and the role sugar has when they've had a heart attack or a stroke. So I thought it would be a good idea to put together some information that I use with my patients to kind of help the person out there that gets mixed up with refined sugars, carbohydrates, complex carbs. What does this all mean?
Oh, that's really important because sugar is important. Now, I always thought sugar should be important to a heart because aren't we supposed to be sweethearts?
Very good. I'm impressed. I'm impressed, Hazel. The problem is identifying which sugars are we talking about. Are we talking about sweets, cookies, cakes, pies, ice cream, or are we talking about having an apple, an orange, the actual fruit? Are we talking about fruit juices? Are we talking about sodas? Are we talking about some of these drinks they have now for athletics? What are you talking about when you talk about sugars? And remember that when you have rice, particularly white rice, white flour, white pasta, and potatoes, those turn to sugars. So there's a big world in the sugar world.
You were mentioning something before when you just came in the door about flu season coming.
Yes.
Share with us a little bit about flu season. I mean, it's coming. Everybody's supposed to be out there getting immunized and getting all the right things and the vitamins in their cupboards, and we're all kind of getting ready to evade the great sniffles. So what would be a good way?
My philosophy about the flu season, if you look at when it is it starts typically with the next holiday that's coming up, which is
Halloween.
Halloween. And we roll right into Thanksgiving with mother's pies and cakes and brownies and fudge sitting out on the table. Then we go to Christmas with the specialties.
More candy.
Yes, then we go to Valentine's Day, and then we have Easter. So we're flooded with sugar, and the average person in a year, it takes in about 125 pounds of refined sugar.
Now let me see. When I go to the grocery store, I buy sugar in the 5 pound.
So
125 of those.
Yes.
12 and a half bags I eat myself.
That's the average. That's the average person's intake of refined sugar in a year, and that's pretty alarming. A little soda, the little 12-ounce cans has about 10 teaspoons of sugar. And people get very confused because they don't, and another thing is alcohol. You don't think of alcohol as sugar.
Right.
So your fruit juices, your sodas, your alcohol, your pasta, these are all sugar foods, and when you're trying to be careful about sugar foods, you have to count everything.
Now tell me about, how does the heart relate to sugar? I mean, I think my heart's good.
Well, number one is that we're just talking about is that when you flood your system with sugar, it's going to hurt your immune mechanism. And if you want to have a healthy heart, you don't want to do anything that's going to suppress the function of your immune mechanism to keep your heart healthy. Number two, when you have a lot of sugar in your diet, what does it do to the pancreas?
Oh, well, your pancreas makes the insulin,
Yes.
so it is having to really chug and
Yes.
work and work
So
and chug.
if you start as a young child with a lot of sugar and you work your way up into your 20s and 30s and you keep that high sugar volume, you can wear your pancreas out. And that's what type 2 diabetes is. You've just literally worn your pancreas out, and then you need the pills. And if you lose the function of your pancreas, then you have to take insulin.
That's amazing, and I do see kids all the time with those huge sodas.
Yes.
Like not
Yes.
even a 12-ounce can, they're super gulp.
And then the third issue are your triglycerides. Now, triglycerides are what we use when we exercise, we burn triglycerides, but also when we have too much sugar. In some people that have a genetic background of not being able to metabolize their triglycerides appropriately, the least amount of sugar they have, their triglycerides go sky high, and that can lead to pancreatitis, which you don't want
No,
either.
no, don't want to have
So
these
all
complaints.
these things end up being something that's not healthy for the heart for any of us.
So we're eating, the average one of us are eating 125 pounds. Oh my goodness, for most of us that means we're virtually eating our weight every
Yes, that's
year
right.
in sugar.
Yes.
And this is refined sugars like candies and cakes, but it's also the hidden sugars
And
like
yes, when you go to the restaurant, they're going to put sugar in a lot of their foods. They're going to put fat in a lot of their foods to make it taste good.
I know.
You know,
So do we have to just have to eat cardboard?
Well, the good foods are the foods that have been least touched. So as I said, when you eat an apple, you're eating sugar, but this is a complex sugar because you have to break it down. When you have an orange, that is a complex sugar. And these are the healthy things for you to be eating.
Great. So now how much sugar can I have? I mean, I don't want to just
Now
go to
remember, I'm not a
nothing.
dietitian, but what I have read is that basically you should have about, if you're not diabetic, about 8 teaspoons of sugar a day, if you're not diabetic. If you have diabetes, the diabetes instructors like to have you watch your carbohydrates. Not that everyone else shouldn't also, but basically you should be watching your carbohydrates. And they recommend about 180 grams of carbohydrates spread out over 3 meals a day.
And that's not very much. Probably.
Well, I'm not a nutritionist, so I can't tell you.
Not so much,
not
but
a lot.
okay. So I can have 8 teaspoons, but if I have 1 soda and it's
Now we're talking about refined. We're talking about refined sugars.
then I've pretty much gotten that one taken care of.
Yeah, that's why you have to be careful. That's why they don't recommend you have sodas.
Yeah. Wow. And if I'm diabetic, then I need to even be more cautious about the kind of foods I'm eating.
Now we're very blessed because there are a lot of foods that are the diet drinks, although they're not that great for you, but at least we have the substitutes, the sugar substitutes, so that you can have some things.
So, well, that's good. So I can have a diet soda, though they sometimes have salt in them.
Yes, and the problem with the diet drinks is you can't count them as water. And if you really want to have a healthy diet, you want to have a lot of water. So you have to make sure you get your 6 to 8 glasses of water, and you can't count sodas and tea and coffee.
I know. Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. But I've really found for me, if I just put a little lemon or a little lime in my water,
It
it makes it
helps.
really nice,
Yeah,
and I like
it
it a
does.
lot better.
It does.
So that would be really helpful. Well, I'm worried. My family that I come from has a lot of heart disease.
Oh.
My grandmother died of congestive heart failure in the 1960s when you got that diagnosis, that's what you got to do. We didn't have any treatments back then, and my grandfather and several of my uncles have passed from heart attacks. So what should I know about that in terms of me and my life right now?
Well, unfortunately, and were they young?
My grandmother was probably in her 60s and my grandfather, but I lost 3 uncles less than 40.
No, that's not good.
No, not
That
good.
is a premature death from cardiovascular disease, and that worries all of us that work with patients, because the younger your relative is, the higher the risk that it's a genetic issue that can be carried on. So the best thing that you can do is to make sure you have regular checkups, you get your cholesterol, your total cholesterol checked on. You make sure you have your blood sugars checked, make sure that they're within normal, your blood pressure, exercise, and minimize your sugar intake. Eat a healthy, balanced diet.
That would be good. Nice fruits and vegetables, little bit of meat.
Lean. If you're
Lean.
going
Like
to
that
have
would
it
be
lean.
what?
Well, if you're going, you now can get ground round at 4%. And ground turkey, the chicken without the skin, the turkey without the skin. The best is fish, not dipped in butter or fried. And not shellfish, but the salmon, halibut, those fishes, barbecued, poached, baked.
That's, I remembered. You can't have the bees.
Yes,
no, it needs to be boiled, broiled, baked, or braised.
Yeah, barbecued.
Barbecued.
Yeah.
Yeah. No fried.
No fried.
No fried. Okay. But that's a great way. And so you need your nice salad, some nice steamed fresh vegetables, a small, perhaps, pasta potato. But I was kind of raised with, you have a big dish of rice or noodles or potatoes.
And you just have to remember they convert to sugar. So now let's say you're very slender and you don't need to worry about your weight and you're not diabetic, then that's a different issue. But if you want to lose weight, the old-fashioned starches, the rice, the pasta, the potatoes, the white flours are
and white bread then.
And white bread, it's going to put your weight on.
Okay. So we're going to take care of that. We're going to take care of our little heart by some exercising. But there's another word I know about the heart, and that's atherosclerosis. Could you share some things with me?
Well, I have a real burden about the poor heart and the word cholesterol. Most people, when they hear cholesterol, they automatically think disease. And cholesterol is a term for something that we make and animals make in our liver to digest fats, to make cells, and to make hormones. The disease that affects the coronary arteries is atherosclerosis, and that is the plaque breaking down the inner wall of the coronary arteries. And if you look at the heart, we're talking about the blood flow on the outside of the heart. So you want to do everything you can to keep those blood vessels wide open so obviously your heart can pump.
Well, and this is about the right size of the heart, isn't it? It's right about the right size.
Yes, and we want to keep it healthy. We want to keep the blood vessels open. We want to be able to have everything to make it as strong as possible.
Well, I've always found the heart to be really fascinating. And one thing I know about the heart that I used to not think about when I was younger was that you see the heart and you think, why do I have to worry about that? It's full of blood, isn't it? But that's like thinking that my glass is full of water.
Yes, because we're talking about the outside.
That's right, the muscle part.
Yes. So what I tell my patients when they come in, I say essentially you've got a plumbing problem. If they have not had a heart attack, the heart itself usually is all right. It's the blood flow to the heart, the outside of the heart. And unfortunately, once you've had a heart attack, once you've had bypass surgery, a stent, if it's been in just one location on these coronary arteries, there's indication that other areas, although they're not blocking the blood flow, there are changes there. So we get very aggressive and we make sure that they eat very well, they take their medicines, they exercise, so that they won't come back with another problem in a different area.
Different area, okay.
Of the heart.
So, thinking about the heart, what kind of things we've talked about some foods I should eat to keep healthy, and you said I should exercise. Now, tell me the difference between sweating exercise or lifting weights.
Oh, that's a good one. The heart needs you to do the cardiovascular, the movement. Walking, biking, swimming, that's what builds up the heart muscle. When you do the other type of exercises, the weight bearing, that's excellent for your arms, it's excellent for your tone, but it doesn't strengthen the muscle of the heart like the aerobic, dancing, whatever.
So if I'm doing some exercises, and I'm not so young anymore, I'm of a vintage here, and we all know it. Y'all are watching us with this because we're of a vintage. How would I know if my heart's going too fast or too slow? How would I know that? Or what should I be trying?
Well, depending on your age, first of all, you need to check with your doctor. You need to make sure that there isn't anything that you don't know, because one of the biggest problems with heart disease is a lot of people have a problem and they don't know they have a problem. So the first thing you do is you make sure it's okay with your doctor for you to be exercising. And then after that, you start slow and you work your way up. You always pace. That is what is the safest thing.
So you want to be able to not have your heart beating so fast, and probably you should be able to breathe while you're still exercising.
Yeah, talk.
Oh, I've gone some places where talking is.
Yes. And then, you know, if you can talk, you can walk. The best exercising is walking. The problem with walking is people get bored. So if you find a friend, if you have someone that can walk with you, that's better.
Okay, that would be good. Now, how would I know if I was having trouble with my heart? Any kind of trouble, how would I know?
Well, unfortunately, most people don't know they have a problem until they actually have an event. And that is a major problem with that the American Heart Association is trying to get the word out that what we do with what's your family history, what you told me about your family history, we would watch you very closely. Your cholesterol, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, are you exercising, what is your diet like, because your risk is higher, particularly when you have a family member that had an event when they were younger. Now in my family, my father just passed away several years ago. He smoked all his life. He was just short of 87 years old. He drank, he ate, he was overweight, he did everything. And every birthday he phoned me, because he knows what I do, and he said, I'm alive. I'm alive, I'm not dead, I'm still here.
Well, that's good.
So, you know, he had very good genes. He had very good genes. So my risk is not the same as your risk.
Okay.
But I still get everything checked out to make sure it's okay, and I'm very, very compulsive about my exercising. I want to bring up one point, since we've kind of gotten off of the sugar issue.
Yeah, let's get back to that.
When you exercise, when you move, one of the greatest motivations, particularly for women, is you can eat. It burns up sugar, particularly the refined sugars. So it's very important that if you're going to eat things you know you shouldn't do, particularly the sugar, for the refined sugars, that you exercise before you're going to do that, and it'll help greatly burn it up.
Well, I think that would have a double-edged sword, because if I worked out really, really hard, that piece of pie would look a little less important to me, because I just went and did all of that hard work, and now I'm going to just erase it with that piece of pie.
So if you're trying to lose weight, you want to have a serving of protein. Something that'll stay with you, not the jelly donut.
So what would be a great breakfast? What would be a great serving of protein to have?
Well,
that's a great way to start your day when you're.
It depends on whether you're a vegan, which has no animal foods, or whether you're eating. But the good old oatmeal, egg whites, they're an excellent source of protein. A lot of people use non-fat cottage cheese. A lot of people get protein drinks if they don't. A lot of people don't like to eat breakfast. So they have protein drinks that have 30 grams of protein or protein powder that you can use if you're not a big breakfast eater, and you're not. Now I'm not talking about diabetic patients, just the general
normal,
public.
regular people.
Peanut butter. Peanut butter. Peanut butter is an excellent source of protein.
Well, I was just reading something the other day that made so much sense to me, that unless you ate a really good breakfast with sufficient protein, you will have a witching hour at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that just has made so much sense to me, because in my office, everybody loves bringing cookies. I don't know what's wrong with them, but they do. There's always cookies, or those huge fat bagels, or those donuts, or something in there. And I can walk by those things all day until about 4 o'clock, and I will vacuum up the most obnoxious things that I know are horrible for me. And I could be going, why do you do this? You're just such a weak woman.
Well, what I do, and this is just my own, for myself, I try to have a piece of fruit, or I have a protein drink, and I do not allow myself to go longer than, let's say, if I'm really on a healthy diet and I'm eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and nuts and things that are good for me, I don't go more than 4 hours until I have another serving of protein. Otherwise, I will get into the cookies too.
Okay, so you should eat about every 4 hours.
4 hours.
Which is really a little fat. That's more like 5 meals a day.
And today, like when I'm coming here, I will eat a whole apple, because the apple releases the sugar slowly, and that way you don't get the, if I had a candy bar and then you get the sugar drop.
Right. Very good. Well, we have a few minutes left here today, and I want to ask some good questions, because this is something I've worried about.
I brought these in because...
How do I know if I'm going to have a heart attack?
Yes, I love these. This has the signs and symptoms for a heart attack for women on one side, and then on the other side, it has for men. So which side would you like? I'll read one, you read the other.
I'll be the girl.
Okay, you be the girl and I'll be the man. So the man is what we traditionally hear about.
Right.
It is the sweating, the nausea, lightheadedness, changes in your pulse, breathing difficulty, changes in the skin, that feeling on your chest like an elephant sitting on your chest, the heaviness in your chest, and that can radiate down your left arm or in your jaw.
I remember, speaking of personal experience, my father-in-law had a heart attack many years ago, and he'd been a pretty heavy smoker, and I remember this was such an odd thing that my mother-in-law called and said, something's wrong with Dad, and he was, pardon all of me, but he was in the bathroom feeling like he wasn't feeling good, so he was sitting in the bathroom and he was drinking a Dr. Pepper to relieve the pressure. So you know, some of those drinks make you burp a lot, and he just wasn't getting better, and finally he kind of called her, and she walked in and he was clammy and sweaty and pale, and sure enough, it was a heart attack. He was not indigestion. So I think sometimes because the heart's right along those nerves there, you kind of feel like it could be indigestion.
And there's a lot of denial.
Well,
you know, you don't want, it's embarrassing if you go to the hospital and it is an indigestion, but it's better to be safe, because what usually happens is just like what happened to you, people want it to be indigestion, and it is their heart.
And it isn't.
It
isn't their indigestion. No. Well, now I've thought a lot about women, because here I am. You say I have some risks, and ever since I turned probably 40, 45-ish, I've had, I don't know how to describe this, women out there. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but they're just kind of like the butterfly flips over in your chest. You know, every once in a while, irregular heartbeats, particularly when I was very perimenopausal. Oh my goodness, especially in the morning, just before I got up, sometimes when I went to bed, and sometimes I'd get really rapid heartbeats, and I'd lay down on the floor and just kind of squeeze down. It would go away. Okay, but then you go, well, now you're a little older, honey. What would I know? How would I know it? And I have a cousin who had a heart attack. She was probably in her middle 50s.
Oh, that's so young.
And she said she remembers clearly when she was taken to the emergency room, and she said, but I don't feel like these symptoms you just read. I don't feel like this.
Yes.
And apparently she was even losing some consciousness, but she remembers, she said she remembers so clearly the doctor, she must have been in full cardiac arrest, because the doctor would have said, I need some sodium bicarbonate, right? We use that in cardiac arrest. And she said, I thought to myself, my stomach's not upset. I don't need soda bicarb. Isn't that interesting? But she actually had quite a heavy heart attack. So,
but for now, we have testing for you, Hazel, specialized testing that we didn't have years ago. So if you were to go to one of the imaging centers that they now have available, if you're nervous about this, you could be tested, because a lot of times women get the plaque in their small little vessels.
Okay.
And that's where they can evaluate you to see if you're feeling uncomfortable.
That's a really good idea, because I'm sure lots of us sit out there and, you know, and then you hear something terrible about your child and you go, oh, because it presses on our chest, because that's where we hold all our love. And then we go, but I wonder what it is. So this is what some things should happen to me. Unusual fatigue.
I have a really good story about that first one. We had a lady that her husband had come to a Rotary meeting, and it was on women and heart disease, and he almost left, but he decided, okay, the room was full of men, and if they could sit there and listen about women and heart disease, he could too. So he listened to what they said, and they read this list that you're going to read in a few minutes, and the number one thing for women is fatigue, extreme fatigue, fatigue that you can't even get up out of the chair.
Oh my.
It's not your fatigue when you're trying to vacuum and you're tired. This is where you're just completely overwhelmed.
You're just exhausted.
Yes. So that night, his son had a party at Chuck E. Cheese, and his mother was there. And halfway through the birthday party, she said, you know, I've got to go home. I'm really tired. I don't know what's wrong with me. Now, this woman did not smoke, did not have diabetes, did not have high cholesterol. She exercised, she ate right, she did everything right. And she kept complaining, I'm just so tired. I don't even know if I can drive myself home, I'm so tired. And he said, Mother, we're going to the emergency room. And she goes, but there's nothing wrong. I just want to go home and go to bed. And what happens to women is they go home and go to bed and they don't wake up.
Right.
So he dragged her to our emergency room. The doctor came down, looked at her, they did an angiogram. She was rushed to the operating room and she had 5-vessel coronary artery disease.
That's about as many as you can have.
That's right. And the surgeon said she would not have lived through the night if the son had not gone to the Rotary Club and heard about these symptoms. So these are really important for people to grasp and to understand.
So let's go. So unusual fatigue is number one.
Unusual, yes.
New and unusual shortness of breath during just everyday activities.
Brushing your teeth, and just getting out of bed. You can just barely get out of bed without having to breathe harder.
Okay, well that's big. Nausea. Then feeling dizzy. Boy, we haven't gotten to chest. Well, now we are. Finally, chest pain, which wasn't. Yeah.
It's not typical. Some women will say they've had it, but it's not typical.
Lower chest discomfort. Back pain between the shoulder blades. Like.
Yeah, you were saying you've had that before. Yeah, yeah. This is what's so scary about heart disease. This is why it's so deceptive, is that you can explain it away with other things.
Yeah, you can just say, I think it's a cramped muscle. I worked a little too hard yesterday.
And years ago, that's exactly what happened to women. They'd come into their doctor complaining about something like this, and the doctor would say, oh, here, take some pills. Take some anti-anxiety pills. Here, take some gastric pills, you know, for your stomach, you know, for gas. And send them home, and then and unfortunately, when they're finally diagnosed, a lot of women die quicker the first year than men do, because when a man comes in with the same thing, they'll put them on a treadmill, they'll do an angiogram, and they'll pick it up.
And then the last one is upper abdominal pressure or discomfort. Wow, yeah, up in here. That's really neat.
So you're going to post these? So
I am. I'm going to post these on our website. So if you want to come and get them off of Smart Lifestyle TV, that would be www.sls-tv.com. Or if you just Google Smart Lifestyle TV, you go to Kitchen Conversations with Hazel, we're going to have these posted because you will be wanting to have those in your house. Because it's so important, women, that we know what it is. We want to take care of our men. We really do want to do that. We also want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And we know what's going on because we got a little living left to do.
That's exactly
You've got grandkids, and I'm still waiting, but I'm waiting for some grandkids. So I want that to happen. Well, as we're wrapping up today, I just want to thank you so much for joining us again. I want you to be alert to how much sugar you're eating. Be careful. I know it tastes really good. I love it too, but watch it. Keep your immune system strong now as we're entering the flu season, this winter time of the year where everybody seems to be getting sick. If we just cut down a little bit on our sugars, perhaps we won't feel that way.
We'll feel I have more energy, and we'll look better.
And we'll look better.
We won't age as quickly as people on a high sugar diet.
So we're going to take care of our health. We're going to take care of this little heart. It's been pumping for years for us, and we want it to pump a lot more years for us. So, Sally, I just appreciate so much your being here. You're helping us to determine what kind of foods are best for us. And I want us to be healthy, and I want our hearts to be strong. And so until we meet again next time in the kitchen, I want you to stay well and be happy.